Welcome to episode 7 of Mr. and Mrs. the podcast. This episode, we're going to be diving into a little bit of adulting, the chaos of adulting, college experience, moving out, all
Things
that
that are
good
actually
shit.
pretty scary. We're going to try to we can laugh about it now because we're like years past
Yeah.
when we went
Yeah.
through this shit.
But hopefully people watching, right, that are younger can learn something and they won't have to go through it.
They won't have to be as stressed. Or maybe they will, but they'll know it's normal and that they'll make it out alive on the other side. Let's start with college experience. I think we've had very different college experiences, right? How old were you when you went to college?
I went to a community college directly out of high school. My dad basically was like, you either got to work or you got to go to school. So I just enrolled in Housatonic Community College. Shout out to Housatonic Community College. I love Housatonic.
I feel like a lot of parents were like, you need to go to... That's how parents got you to go to
Whoa,
college.
what else?
Like,
Yeah.
do you want to
what
work
do?
or do you want to go to college?
Right. It's interesting, though, because, like, when I started in Housatonic, it's like such a small knit. Like, it was very small then. Now it's, like, huge. It seemed like high school, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't a real like college-y vibe almost. It was more like all the people from high school that I knew were there.
I was going to say, were a lot of people from your high school?
Yeah. And then, just took prerequisites, didn't have any direction. I really didn't want to be there. But
Were you working or just a full-time student? Or were you part-time?
I was full-time eventually, but during this time, my parents were going through the divorce. Like they started going through the divorce. So it was a challenging, time in my life. So it was like go to school, and then I went, and it was just like not stimulating me. Just didn't feel like college. A lot of my friends were going to actual colleges, going away. So I was kind of like lost,
How long did you go to community college for?
About a year tops.
And did you feel that way immediately, like from going like this just like isn't for me?
Yeah, because it was just you're doing prerequisites. You don't know what you're majoring in,
My first college experience, I went to a 4-year school, so it was a little bit different. I went to school in Boston. I went to the city. It was not for me. So it was very short-lived. I think I did like 2 years in Boston before I transferred. But my first experience in terms of living on my own and just transitioning from high school to college was, number one, in college, you have a lot more time to get your work done. In high school, I got good grades because I basically had to, or my mom would I'd get in trouble. Like my mom was the kind of person that if report cards
most
came
present
out,
parents are like that.
C's were failing for her.
Yeah,
So-
C's aren't good.
Really?
No.
I don't know. I mean, like French, always had a C in French. Hard time for me, like junior, senior year. Not because I wasn't smart, but you're 17, 18, you have a car now, you have like a boyfriend. Like, I don't know. I was getting very distracted by outside things when it was like crunch time, get your GPA up, apply to school.
The stimulation is crazy.
But anyways, so my first experience was moving to Boston, 2 hours and a half away from my mom. And I am like a mama's girl till I die. Obsessed with my mom. My mom just like spoiled us, did everything for us. So everyone would kind of make fun of me and be like, oh my God, you're going to like die once you live on your own. How are you going to live in college? How are you going to eat? How are you going to cook? How are you going to do laundry? Like everyone, my dad would literally be like, oh my God, you have to learn how to like live on your own. He was so excited for me to go. But it's really not that hard. School wise, you have a lot more time because everyone who's like been to like a 4-year school, basically like I ended up getting a job later on, but you have like your 5 classes if you're a full-time student, and then it's like 8 to 9, and then you don't have class till like 1 to 2, or you know what I mean? It's like very like spread out like that. So you have a lot of free time to do your work.
Depending on how because you can create your schedule. right?
Yeah, so my second year of college, because I got a full-time job, I literally did all 5 classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I had Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and weekends off. So, yeah, you could create your schedule. But when you're a freshman, you can't really. Like, you're stuck in the 8 a.m. classes. You're stuck in, like, all the shitty times. You can't really, like, mess around with your schedule like that. Schoolwork, I thought was easier because you had more time to do it. Laundry was difficult only because I waited so long to do laundry like we do here. And it's like you have like a 50-pound basket of clothes that's like a month's worth. So that was horrible because our school didn't have like elevators, our dorm room. We had to walk down like 4 flights of stairs with laundry and then walk back up 4 flights of stairs with laundry. So if you didn't have a boyfriend, you were like fucked.
Can I just throw something out there about laundry? I think laundry might be
The worst part of
one of the worst parts of living.
You know what I think it is for laundry though, babe, is people who have like houses and their laundry is like in the basement. Because
Like ours.
yeah, but even like my house or my mom's house or like when you have a house for the most part it's like in the basement or like somewhere like far, like people who are like rich, they're smart and they like new construction homes have the laundry room like upstairs where the bedrooms
It's so
are.
much easier to do.
Yes, or like in the kitchen and upstairs.
Because you do it and then you walk upstairs and you know,
forget about it.
organize it.
I have to run our wash like 3 times because I forget about it, and then it like smells like wet.
People that have it in like their kitchen or their laundry room upstairs, it's so much more organized. Those people. You know?
Every time I lived in an apartment, I was like, I love laundry. It's like 2 feet. You just walk out of your bedroom, do the laundry. Like in Dallas, thriving with laundry. Then I came back here and at my mom's, I like never fucking did laundry. And then here, I don't want to do it because it's a process.
My college experience was kind of null and void. When I first came out of high school, that's around the time things were getting very dicey at home. You know, my dad was kind of in the process of leaving, and I wasn't in the right mindset. You know, I had a bad, so I basically squeezed through high school, you know, by just charming teachers. Passed by like D's, I think. I had a lady, I forget what she was, that sat me down and was like, you shouldn't even be graduating high school. They should be making you. It wasn't though, because I was cool with one of my guidance counselors. I forget who she was, but she wreaked havoc on me. She was like, they should be keeping you back. You pretty much slid through. These are D's. You'd be lucky to get into a community college. You should think about going into construction. And it's so funny because when you're a kid and you hear construction, you think like it's not lucrative. I know construction workers that have presidential Rolexes, right?
Yes.
Like, so it's just
Like-
interesting, you know. But anyways, and I was kind of like not in that mindset. You know, my parents were going through the divorce, a lot of turmoil at home. And I just didn't want to do anything, you know. So my dad, like I said, he was just like, you got to either work or go to school. So I just enrolled in Housatonic Community College. Love Housatonic. It was so small then, though. Like when I went there, it wasn't the feel of like college, you know what I mean? It was more of like, wait, am I back in high school? And I knew everyone there. You know, there was a lot of people from high school. Shout out to community colleges, though. I think the way to go, especially for kids now, because it's so expensive, is to do 2 years at a community college because it's so inexpensive, and then do you finish your 2 years at a dorm or whatever, or a real college. You get a better education, and especially in the community colleges, it's more intimate. Like because you go into Southern or some of these big colleges. And
you're in like lecture halls with,
there's
200
like 200 people. You're just a number. But yeah, long story short, it was kind of just going to class and just sliding by. I wasn't in the mindset to go. I wasn't excited about it. We were partying a lot, because it was that era when we were just out of high school. We were used to partying from high school,
Yeah.
so we just we were partying a lot.
I feel like I knew a lot of people who did community college, and I always felt bad for them because it's okay. I can't talk from experience, but from what they've told me, it's a lot like high school where a lot of the people who stayed in community college, like stayed local, they still had their job. They still had, had like a pretty like high schoolish schedule, like in terms of times.
Yes.
And college, 4-year colleges are not like that.
No.
So you have so much more free time. You get to fuck around. You get to party. You get to day drink. So
you're still in your old hometown,
Yeah, but I agree with what you said. Looking back now, if I didn't have like the scholarship that I got when I went to Quinnipiac, and my parents obviously to help me pay for it, I would have done 2 years community college. Like, I think financially that's like the smartest
financially
thing you can
it makes
do.
the
It's
most sense.
not fun. Of course, I had more fun being like away for all 4 years. But financially, because I have a lot of friends who are in a ton of school debt. Like, my best friend graduated with $100,000 debt.
I've seen two people with 250 doing mortgages. You see it all. And these are people that make a lot of money per year that could barely qualify for a mortgage because of the student loan debt.
Yes, their payments are like $1,500 on student loans, the bare minimum payment.
They don't educate the student or the person at that moment to say, hey, these are gonna come due. It's just something you take. You don't realize it. It's tough. It's weird because my experience with college wasn't until I was probably like 27, 26, 27-ish. I went back. I don't know what it was.
Hold on. Clarify that. I thought you went to school right after.
No, I did. I went to school right after high school.
For how long?
I want to say a little less than a year. Once my dad split and it was an ugly divorce. I think I just dropped out.
Okay.
I just dropped out.
You probably had less pressure from your mom.
Yeah, there was my mom, was going through a lot. She was going through a meltdown. So I was just like, oh, fuck it. Now it's a free for all. You know what I mean? Yeah. I could get money in the streets, basically. I could make more money hustling. So that's pretty much what I did. And then, that's pretty much what I did. Started rapping, you know what I mean? And just
how old were you when you started rapping?
When I started rapping, I was like 10 years old. Like, we used to do it.
Really?
Yeah. I have tapes. They're lost tapes. I don't know where they are of me being like 9 or 10, just like rapping. And all the kids would be like, oh my God, you're so good. Because I would just write rhymes all day. Yeah. But then I got back into it after high school. I'm like, yo, let's do this. So we used to have freestyles. And it was a fun time in my life when you think back at it. But it was a very lost time. It was a lot of time wasted, because there could have been, I could have applied my time. I'd never applied myself in school. Ever until I was like 20, until I got older. And then when I went back is when I really appreciated it. And I went to Housatonic, went back, and it was so intimate. And there's professors that I remember that like shaped my life and just like expanded my mind. And I was 26, 27, and I was like upset about it. I was like, damn, why couldn't I have caught this, like younger? Because it's a late start when you're doing it at 26. But when you said about the C's, I remember, I forget his name. He was the best science teacher ever. He was a doctor, and he goes, just remember, your physician might have passed med school with C's. And I was, right. And I was just, it's so funny.
No, I think they have like rules
now. Back then though, he said, he's like, just because they're a doctor don't mean they're smart. He's, you know what I mean? You might be getting operated on by someone that passed with C's. But yeah, I really appreciated it when I went back and I took it serious.
And you were how old when you went back?
Probably 27.
And you went back for how long?
So I went to Housatonic. I got my associate's degree. And I went back with the intentions of...
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I went back with the intentions of teaching. I was like, I'm going to teach. It's you could give value to kids. I think I do good with kids because, high school level. And then I went back, for that. And then got my associates and then said, I don't know why I landed at Southern. I don't know why. I think they had a good I think they have a good teaching program there.
Yeah, I think 2 of my cousins got their teaching masters. Yeah, they do. Yeah. They do.
And it was great. It's crazy thinking back now because there's so many teachers. There's teachers and professors. I don't know if that happened for you that just like shaped my life. Is there professors that just stand out to you?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, it was like my senior year that I had
Because
it. She
you're
was my
older.
professor and she was my is it your advisor? I forget what it's called in college, but she was one of my professors for like a high level like class that I was taking in my field. And then she advised me to like go to apply to the California program, QU in LA, and then I got in, and that's when I discovered like social media, got my first job out there. When I look back, and immediately I knew it even then, I was like, I'm obsessed with you. She actually made me want to become like a college advisor professor because of how she just really impacted my life. But then I looked into it and I was like, wow, like she has like a PhD and like all this shit.
Yeah, she's smart.
Yeah.
I had this one professor. I loved him so much. It was a reading and literature class, and it was The Great Gatsby that we had to read. And I remember I read the book, and it's a complex book to read. And I read it, and I was just obsessed with it. And during that time in my life, it was a lot. I was feeling a lot of regret because I was working. I think I was working 3 jobs and doing school full time or like part time. I forget what it was. I think it was full time. I think I was full time working 2 jobs, but it was a struggle because I was older in life and I was just down and out. I'm like, damn, man, like like regretting the past. And when I read The Great Gatsby, it basically was a guy. I don't know if you know the book, Jay Gatsby, who is trying to repeat the past. He wants to like basically go back. And the professor was just like, yeah, you can't repeat the past. That's like what this book kind of teaches you. And there's so many things that I learned from him. And he was so laid back though. He wasn't, like a ball breaker. But yeah, one of the big things, he was like, you can't repeat the past. That was part of the book, one of the themes in it. And it related to me. And then I was like, I started appreciating it. The Greek mythology. I just started to get so deep into that. And it really expanded my mind. And then I realized, okay, college does expand your mind. And then I think I had like 10 classes left, right?
To get a bachelor's or associate's?
To get a bachelor's in teaching and to start like teaching. And I had 10 classes left. And I don't know if I Googled it or looked it up. I looked up average teacher salary. And I looked at it. And it was like, I don't know, 45, 48 then or something. And I looked and I'm just doing the math, me doing the tax. And I'm going, wait, I'm like almost making that doing these 2 jobs. How am I going to survive? This isn't going to work. And I'm like, I got to do something else. I can't do this. I can't survive. And then you had the student teach, which was even crazier because I think that's a scam personally. They make you just go basically teach the class while the real teacher just sits back for free. That's the biggest scam ever because you don't really learn until you actually get thrown into it. I was a paraprofessional for a while I was going to school. So that's when I started to realize I don't think I want to teach because the public school system was so backwards at that point. When we went to school, if you did something wrong, you were dreading going home because your parents were going to whoop your ass. It was to the point the kids were ruling the school. If a kid freaked out in class, flipped a desk, and you tried to calm him down, the parents would be like, what'd you do? Like, what'd you do to trigger him? And, all the uppers, like the principals, they're at the mercy of the parents. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not making this type of money to deal with this shit. I don't know if I could shape these kids. So I gave up. I basically quit with 10 classes left. And that professor was like, dude, you're quitting? Like I don't know how he caught wind. He's like, you're dropping out? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what are you going to do now? And I was like, I'm going to figure it out. And he's like, just finish, bro. And I was like, I'm not teaching. They don't make a lot of money. He's like, dude, I make a lot of money. I'm like, you're a college professor, and you've built it up. And he's like, man, don't quit. And never forget, he said, freedom is, what did he say? Obedience is freedom. That shit stuck with me for my whole life, still does. And it's true, right? When you're obedient to something, you're free because it opens you up to everything. Someone who's obedient to their job and their craft, they become successful. You know what I mean? Practice makes perfect. Yeah. And then I dropped out. The real experience I had with college was when I was at Housatonic, and then I went to go visit my boy Brian Howard and Al, who I grew up with Brian, but I met Al there up at Eastern, and I was like, wow, it was so different. I'm like, these kids party hard. Like, how I don't think I ever would have. It's probably a blessing in disguise. I don't think I ever would have lasted at a big campus. I would have just partied. I wouldn't have went to school. And we know a lot of kids like that where their parents were pissed because they just wasted all their money. They went there, they partied, got drunk, got high, and that was it. So, it might have been a blessing in disguise. Society trains you
to believe that
you need school to make money, which is completely false. They need to have courses in high school on credit on the repercussions of taking out heavy student debt loans, right? They that's what they really need to have to educate people. But as we know, all these studies and stuff that we read, the public school system was set up by Rockefeller and Carnegie and all those guys to develop or produce workers, factory workers. That's why sit down, don't move, do this. It's like,
Yeah.
It's very methodical.
I think obviously that like the times are just changing, and it's one of those things where it's like it's an era thing. Where when I was in high school, like if you didn't go to college, if you didn't go away to college, you were like the loser.
A loser,
yeah.
That still probably exists though. Not as much because now people have social media platforms. They make money.
There's more like
self-employed
teenage millionaires in the world than there's ever been. There's more millionaires in the world than there's ever been, all thanks to social media. There's just so many more different career paths that are available now to so many people that you don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Right. So it's very different now, which is why I think I agreed with you on the 2 years community college if you need to go.
Financially.
Because I even wanted to go and get my master's immediately after school. My parents were both like on board. And again, I had their support financially too. So they were like, just go, do this. And I was like applying, and I don't know what in me just was like this, like I'm not going. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I feel like that would have been like, and I don't even know if they would have supported me as much as they did in undergrad. So I would have had at least like $30,000 worth of debt for what? Literally for what? For me, it doesn't matter. I used to explain this all the time to my ex. I was like, you go to school, like totally supported that, because if you're like a doctor or like you want to be in a career like a professor where you literally, it's a requirement for college professors to have at least a master's or something like that. So if you are trying to go into a career that requires a degree, 100% do it. But if you're going into a career like marketing and you may not want to be corporate where they're requiring it, although today I actually saw a post that did you see it, where it was like 40% of employers in the United States
are not requiring
a bachelor's
because it
degree
means
now.
shit. Like,
yeah.
What does it mean?
So I think it's just something that just changes with the times. And back then it was like frowned upon. My mom would have like fucking kicked me out if I didn't go to college.
90% of my friends that went to college don't do anything related to what they went to college for.
Yes.
I have a friend the kid Brian Howard, who went to, he went for like, I forget what it was. And then got out, went and got his electrician license, and now makes great money. And he told me, he's like, it just sucks. I look at the student loan debt and it's like 20, 30 grand. And he's like, and I could have just went right into electrician, being an electrician.
The thing that I will say though, is that I do think college teaches you different things. Like I do think that me going away to college, like I did learn to be a little bit more independent. I did learn, that's where I really got like my first full-time job as like a hostess, and was able to like socialize with people, make friends, like learn how to work with people. I mean, that's outside of college, so I guess that doesn't really count. But I was able to also just learn a lot of like responsibility and like time management. So I think I did learn basic life skills. And I think that's maybe what a lot of people learn and take away from college. But in terms of like the classes you're taking and the shit they're teaching in the classes, like I don't think I want to say like 80% of it I'm not using today.
Surface level.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's just like I did learn some other things because I do think that if someone like me, went to community college, I would have just never fucking gone. If I didn't have the pressure of like my parents paid for this shit, this, that, like I wouldn't have gone. I didn't go to high school. Like I literally was skipping class a lot. I just think like for me it's fine and I had a really good experience and everything, but yeah, I think a lot of the people that I know also didn't, use their degree. They're in different careers or they like went back and studied something else, or now they're like literally in a field where they don't need a degree. So
Right.
like I agree. I think it just, yeah, I try to look at it, I guess, from like a positive, like if we spent so much money, I did get something out of it, whether it was like a little bit of discipline or just responsibility.
Put it this way. That professor that asked me, what are you going to do now? I had no plan, right? Dropped out, 10 courses shy of my bachelor's. Didn't know what I was doing. I think I started working 3 jobs, right? And then met, TJ and got in the mortgage business. And now, I've had years where I probably made that guy's salary like 4 times over. You know what I mean? So
Well, you
and
probably
it has
made like
nothing.
my salary 4 times
It's nothing
over,
to do with the degree.
and I have a degree.
Yeah, it's nothing to do with the degree. It's interesting. It's interesting.
I think also when you're that young, you really don't know I feel like what you want to do with your life. I feel like you're just becoming an adult and then you're committing to hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt when you literally don't know what to do with your life is kind of scary to think about. But I guess like I said, I guess if as long as you have a 4-year degree, like a lot of when you're applying to jobs, it just says like bachelor's degree. It doesn't say like bachelor's degree in media studies, communications, like marketing, whatever it is, They just ask for a degree in general. So, and then obviously they can look at your experience. But yeah, I think it's like people expect us to know like what we want to do for the rest of our lives after when we're 18 years old and commit to
It's not
all this
realistic.
debt. Yeah, it's like, it's scary now that and the reason that we know all this now is, and I relate everything back to social media, is like everyone's sharing their stories, sharing this insight. You know what I mean? If someone's listening to this podcast right now and they have a kid who's about to go to college, it's like, yeah, don't judge your kid if he wants to do 2 years of community college. Like, it's not a bad thing. It doesn't make him dumb. It makes him actually smarter.
It's the end of the world for some parents when they hear that.
That would have been the end of the world for my mom, dude, if I said I was going to community college.
Of course. Oh, it's also a lot to do with it, and that's something my father stressed when I was in high school. It's really the people you hang out with and surround yourself with too. Because, towards the end, like my senior year, I started hanging out, with just a lot of kids that weren't going anywhere. They were from broken families and not to say my family's not broken, but you just surround yourself with those kids. So towards the end of senior year, when we graduated, all those kids that I was hanging out with had nothing going on, right? They were the ones that are like, oh, I'll just go to the community college. You're not surrounded by a kid that's like, dude, come to college or just, whatever. It really is all about who you surround yourself by. Community college is great, but when you're surrounded by someone that doesn't have any direction and those are your friends, you get caught up in that, and a lot of time gets wasted. And kids don't. My uncle always used to say, when you're young, you feel like you're gonna live forever. And I remember he told me that when I was like 16 or 17, and I'm like, what does that mean? I don't understand it. He just said, you feel like you're gonna live forever. That's why young people, right, like 17, 18-year-olds, they do crazy shit, that could literally affect their whole life. Go to jail forever, die. And I realized it when I got older. I was like, holy shit, because when you're older, you're like, damn, I don't got no more time left. I got to like chill out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really who you surround yourself by, especially that senior year in high school, because who's your circle, right? Look at your circle.
People that I surrounded myself, like my good friends in high school, they were all like the good kids, like who come from like good families, who all go to school, who got into great universities. So if I was embarrassed, like if I or I felt like I would have been very embarrassed if I was the only one out of like my friend group who didn't go to college. So you are who you surround yourself with, and when you see people like around you like doing these great things, like it makes you want to do these great things.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like I had a really good just like I did surround myself with really good people. My sister was the first person in my family who went to college. And if I didn't go to college, like my mom, like in our entire family, she was the first one who went to college. And, you know, I have a huge family. And then even to my mom, like for me to not go or not get in or whatever would have just been like devastating for her. So I had definitely a lot of like pressure and like, you know, positive things around me, thankfully, because I probably would have been a kid that didn't go to college or dropped out, even if I went to community college. But I just got like lucky, I feel like.
My dad, such quotables my dad had. He used to say, you will find out later in your life that the cool kids in high school that you see, coolest kids, getting all the girls dressed the best, probably are going to be losers when they're older, right? And the dorky, more straight edge kids that seem boring, you know, it's like, I don't really want to hang out with them. They're not as fun, are the cool kids when you get older. You know why? Because they're engineers. They're FAs, right? They're financial advisors. They're getting chicken when they get older. Those cool kids were the kids that I was chilling with that went to community college. Nothing against community college.
Yeah,
as I said,
college.
it makes financial sense. But when you go to community college, there's absolutely no direction. You're just going to do it. Then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and we probably hung out with the kids that went to community college and then dropped out of community college.
Yeah, they just went, you know, for form. They just went, just to do it, right, to say they were doing something. But they were the kids who just, you know, had no direction. And those kids, typically, a lot of them, most of them that I know, they're dead, you know, in jail or just losers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you see them, it's crazy. It's interesting.
You know what else? And I don't know if you can... this didn't really happen to me, again, because I think I had the pressure that, like, college, there was no choice but to go to college. But did you have friends, like, who, or just new people who, let's say, right out of high school, they started working, or they were working while they were in high school and maybe making, like, $300 to $400 a week, which was, like, a lot. That was, like, people's full-time salaries back then. And so I feel like a lot of people that I knew that like didn't go to college, they had that little bit of taste of money compared to me. I was making $0. Like, yeah, if I needed something, I had to ask my like mom for like $20 or like whatever I needed. But then there was like the kids who like had full-time jobs in high school or like part-time jobs in high school or making like $300 a week, whatever, and then graduated or making $400 a week, which was a lot. They're still living at home. They literally now have what's 400 times 4? $1,600 a month to just blow because they're not paying bills or not. They're living at home.
Yeah,
that's like a lot of money. Imagine someone just giving you $1,600 as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old.
We knew a lot. There was a lot of kids we knew that had like back in 2001 driving like a $25,000 to $30,000 car when you're a junior or senior in high school is like a big deal. And there was kids that would work, and they'd have these like Acura, Integras, souped up, really expensive cars that adults were driving then.
Yeah. But even if you worked at like McDonald's, let's say at $8 an hour for 40 hours a week, what is that?
Not a lot.
No, but for a 17-year-old that's making $0 or compared to me that I was making $0.
It's a lot because you have no overhead. You have no bills. You're able to save that money.
So I'm saying that kids at that age got a taste of money, and my mom would always say, I don't want you to get a job because then you're going to be like, oh, I have a little bit of money. And yeah, you have no responsibility. You have no bills. You have nothing. She bought me my car. Like, so she's going to be like, it's going to feel like a lot to have $1,600 to blow on what? Partying, alcohol, food, cigarettes, like whatever it is. But it's not. So she didn't want me to work in college because she was like, you're going to get a little bit of taste of money and be like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to quit and just work. But that's what I'm saying. So I knew a lot of people that did that. They went to community college, got a full-time job, started making a little bit of money. And then they're like, oh, I don't have to go to school. Why the fuck would I go to school? I'm making money. Everyone who's in schools has $0. and broke, because there's a lot of kids who go to college and they're broke college students. Like everyone says, you're a broke college student.
Struggling, yeah.
Yeah, I was a broke college student. Like, you don't make any money. You're
A lot of
literally
my
just,
friends
like,
had to work. They had to bartend and stuff through college to
Yeah.
make ends meet. Yeah, they were broke.
I had so much help from my parents, but I also like I still got a full-time job, and I got that taste of money, and I was like, great. Like, I only got an allowance when I was in college, like every Friday or whatever, and I had to make that like last me through the weekend, and I would blow it on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I got a full-time job and I got that taste of money. Luckily, I just didn't, like, I was able to like balance and do everything. But I think people get that taste of money and then they're like, why would I work? And then they realize when they have to move out or they have an apartment, they're like, fuck, the $400 a week isn't a lot when you have to pay bills, when you have to pay a phone, you have to pay all this shit, you know?
True. Very true.
So after college, what is your first experience with moving out? How old were you when you first moved out?
I was about 18, turning 19. This was
Right after you dropped out of school?
yeah. No, so I was 19 because, I was probably like 17, turning 18, going into Houstonic. So I was about 19-ish, and, the divorce had already taken its course. And I've always been, when the divorce happened and my dad split, my mom, went AWOL. And basically it was like me helping her pay bills. She's like, we're struggling, we need money, blah, blah, blah. So started hustling, and I would pay bills. Like, I was pay bills. I had to pay the bills, or just help her pay the bills, because it was like the only way to, alleviate some of that stress she had. And then it just came to a point. It was very toxic. I was partying a lot, definitely wrong crowd, and just always partying, bringing people in the house. Drugs in and out the house.
At
right?
your mom's.
At my mom's,
Yeah.
but I was, paying for everything. So I was kind of in that rebel state of like, I'm paying for this. I'm giving you money.
Yeah.
And then I just think it came to a boiling point with my mom. I don't know if she thought she couldn't afford the bills, or, she just moved back with her mom in New York. Kind of like no heads up, just like, I'm moving. And there was no like room for me up there. I wasn't gonna move up there. So at the time I was chilling on Washington Terrace in Bridgeport. I love talking about those times because it was such a pivotal, just a weird time in my life.
When you say Washington Terrace, like, you say because it's so familiar to you, but is that like the hood spot?
Washington Terrace is the hood.
Okay.
It's on Park Ave over by kind of like Pot of Gold, and I'll show you it one day. But it's like a one way in, one way out street. But I met these dudes over there and became cool with them through another one of my friends that went to high school with, Benny, and we got cool. And then it was just like chilling, drinking, no direction. Mm-hmm. And my mom left and I didn't have nowhere to go. I was like, fuck, where do I go? I'm looking up apartments. And then at one point I looked up renting a room, and I was like, this is gross. I can't live with strangers. Mm-hmm. This is like it's equivalent to jail for me. And the dude at the time, I asked him, they had a room that was like outside of their apartment on a porch. It didn't even have heat in it. They had like a heater in it. And his brother was moving out. I forget where he was moving. And they were like, yo, you could move in here. It was cheap. They wanted like a couple $100 a month or whatever. So I was like,
for
all
an
right.
apartment or for
No, it was just
a room?
The setup was weird. Like, you walked in, it was just one room outside of their house. So I'd have to go inside their house to like shower and stuff like that. It's just one room. It's a weird setup. It was almost like an enclosed porch, but it was actually a room. And then I moved in there, and then it was kind of like fend for yourself. But then they ended up moving out probably like a year and a half later, and then it was kind of bouncing around from spot to spot at that point.
But like apartments on your own, or just like living with friends and
just
shit?
living, because a lot of there was you know, as dark of a period as it was in my life, there was a lot of good people
in
that
your
God,
life.
you know, like put in my life who I knew that had apartments, and then I'd go over there and kick it. And hey, just stay here, bro, and then I would pay them, and you know, kind of bounce around from spot to spot. It was a very, very low, dark period. You know what I mean? In my life, that was my moving out situation. Was just here you go,
Wow.
I'm gone. You know what I mean? Didn't talk to my father, so it was just dark.
Wow.
It was
I
fight or
didn't even
flight,
know that.
eat what you kill type mentality. But yeah, spot
And
to spot.
when did you get your first like apartment, like on your own?
Um, I got my first apartment on my
Because you were
own.
technically you like had roommates at that point, right? Because you were living with your friends and stuff.
Yeah, but I moved so many different spots. I don't know when I got an actual place, but when I got an actual place was on Wood Ave in this little spot. I was like 24 at that
Near my
point.
mom's?
Kind of near there. Yeah, I could show you one day. I got a spot over there. It was like super cheap. That's when I first started dating my ex. I was like 24 or something, and it was just like a studio type, you know, setup. Um, yeah, but it was good because it was like yours, you know. It's
Yeah.
the
Like your
sense
own
of this is
space.
mine. Yeah, and it was great. It was like, oh, this is, you know, you have a sense of ownership. Not ownership, I guess home. You know,
Yeah.
but I was bitter as fuck back then because it was just, you know, I felt like I just got dealt some shitty cards, you know.
Like your parents divorcing, your dad leaving, your mom leaving. Yeah.
My brother was already went through college, established, you know, had all the support in the world. So, you know, it was a bitter time in my life. Again, it has nothing to do with any of them. It has to do with me. That's when you look in the mirror,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, and see like what you could have done, what you didn't do, you know, because a lot of people stay in that bitterness. I was in it forever, and it just doesn't get you anywhere because at the end of the day, it's who you got to look at in the mirror. You know, there's people that come from less that have worse, you know, scenarios, worse situations that made it happen, you know, and it wasn't even bitter about it, you
Yeah.
know.
And I
You
think
know?
that's something that as you get older, what's important is that like we recognize those things now and we can look back and see
Oh
and
yeah,
acknowledge
it
that
came
there's
a
people that did go through worse shit that come from like worse circumstances, have less, and they are doing more. It's inspiring. It's
There's beauty in the struggle and there's ugliness in no, what is J. Cole? He said there's beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the success, which is a great line because I think back to it now and it's like, wow, that was a beautiful struggle. The fact that I made it out and then became successful and have success, and so much ugly stuff happens with success. You know, so people change. You see the way people act with money. You see how people are acting nicer to you because you're successful. That's just such a good line by him that I always love. Is beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the success.
I feel like God's timing is like everything though too, because sometimes if you had gotten the opportunities that you had gotten later in life, whether that's like let's say meeting me, like if we would have met back then, we probably wouldn't be together. Do you know what I
No,
mean?
no,
If
for
you would have
sure.
gotten the opportunity, like the career you're in or the people that you like ran into later in life that helped shape your career, um, if you had gotten that opportunity earlier, you might not have been mentally like or emotionally ready to, like take that career on, or you wouldn't be as successful in like the way you are now.
Right.
So I feel like God's timing is everything because I know like in my life, if certain things came to me when I was much younger, I would have made poor decisions. I would have fucked up the opportunity. I wouldn't have like acknowledged the opportunity for all that it was, and I wouldn't have taken advantage. I would have just let it go and missed that opportunity versus it coming to me later in life when I had more of like a head on my shoulders and like was actually thinking about my life and where I wanted to go and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I look at things. I'm like, everything happens in the way it's supposed to happen. Because even if
For
you,
sure.
if you did have those opportunities back then, we wouldn't maybe have done what we would have done with it now.
And the struggle, like living like that and bouncing around from pad to pad for the few years, I'm going to think about it later and see how long it was. It seems like it was 3-4 years. you appreciate the simple things in life. And then when I did get established, it's easy to look at it and be like, wow, that's where I came from. But a lot of it, even when I wasn't kind of successful, but I had my own apartment, I noticed I was so content with just having a studio apartment and living with the bare minimum, because when you're hopping from spot to spot, you're like, wow, this is establishment. This is like great,
Yeah.
and it teaches you to be humble. You know what I mean? It teaches you. That's why if I make a lot of money, I'm like, I'm not content with this. This is going in the bank. You know what I mean? This can all be gone at any moment. The difference with me is I'm not really scared to lose it. People with money, it's scary for them. It's interesting. It humbles you.
Yeah. My first time moving out, it was after college. It was a few years after college because I moved back home with my mom for a few years after college. And then I got my own place when I was probably 23. I actually moved to Stratford. I moved to Avalon and Stratford, and then now I'm back. So full circle moment. But yeah, I moved there. My rent was $1,900. And then that was the first time.
A lot.
It was a lot. I had just started. I had a full-time job, but I was literally making 50 grand a year, 52 grand a year or something. And that is not enough to be paying $2,000.
You live in check to check with that rent.
Yeah. And so I had just started my business a few months prior to that. My experience with moving out is I really honestly don't remember exactly what happened, but my mom, goes to Nantucket for the summer. I was fighting with my mom and just mad at my sister. I was going through some shit at home. And I was just you know what? Fuck you guys. My sister had just bought her condo and was moving out, which granted she's 5 years older than me, but I was just okay, I want to move out too. I make good money. I just started my business. I'm making my full-time income and now some extra money. I was just going through some shit and I was I hate you guys. I'm leaving. So when I moved out, I didn't even tell my mom. I packed up all my shit and moved out of her house. And it was really sad because I am so close to them, but I'm so like that where I was just whatever, I'll just go get my own place. I was happy I did that though. I feel like I needed that because my mom. We're so babied that if I didn't do that, I probably would still be living my best life at my mom's house. You know what I mean? She babies us and she's amazing and it's the best thing ever. She's so sweet. But
yeah, you flew the coop and you learned a lot of valuable lessons.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's what I was saying before. It's some of those things we have to go through. I feel like I needed to just get out of my mom's house. That fight happened because I needed to get out. I needed to work, have responsibility, because I really didn't at my mom's house, And so that's kind of how I moved out of my house. Being in an apartment, it was a 1-bedroom. It was just a 1-bedroom, a bathroom, little living room, a little balcony, and my kitchen that was tiny. Your bills are $20. Your bills are $20. So it's almost a false sense of, although my rent was so fucking high, I was wow, bills. My mom's always complaining about bills and shit. Yeah. And I was my water is free. My heat is $20. And so it was almost a false sense of reality for me.
False sense of
the bills were, the rent was crazy. But yeah, I lived there for about 6 months. I ended up ending that lease early and moving in with my ex into a different apartment. But yeah, so I had 6 months, I think, of living on my own, just me and Josie. I had just gotten Josie. It was just us two. It wasn't that chaotic. I literally just signed a lease and I moved all my own stuff over there. That was it.
Humbling beginnings.
Mm-hmm. I had to pay $1 million to end my lease early though.
I'm sure. Yeah,
don't do that.
They get you on that. That's.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to pay $1 million to replace the rug because Josie had an accident. She was a puppy. She would never do that now.
Surprised they allowed pets there.
Yeah, you had to pay dog rent. It was $60 a month or something. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
You have to pay dog rent and stuff.
Want me to take us out?
Yeah. Do you want to get into home ownership?
We're probably at an hour
I
and
know
something.
it's long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Episode 7, Mr. and Mrs. the podcast. Thank you guys for listening. As always, we were supposed to get into more in this episode, but there was a lot that we had to cover. Some topics are a lot more information than others.
Do you think we should make this a 2-part episode? Because I feel like we're just like literally ending in the middle.
Possibly. We're gonna do a home ownership one. I think that probably can be its own, because I could talk about a lot of different things, because that's my expertise.
Yeah, we'll finish this episode off the following week, and we'll get into our first experience as homeowners. That one will be a long one because we can talk about just the whole process of home ownership, and then also just like the random shit that happens that people don't tell you.
Yeah, the home ownership episode is going to be great just because I could give you guys behind the scenes a lot of valuable information about mortgages, how it works, chaotic nightmares, fires.
We can tell how you just helped my
process.
friends close.
For sure. We're going to get into a lot of valuable things. Yep, episode 7, Mr. and Mrs. the podcast.